What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Coffeez for Closers, where we bring you insight from the world's most influential leaders. Today's guest is a powerhouse in the real estate world with over 2 decades of experience and a portfolio that spans thousands of apartment units across the country. He helped countless people break free from the grind and achieve financial independence through his strategic investing. His teachings have earned him top accolades as a mentor and speaker, transforming ordinary investors into real estate moguls. Get ready to meet the man that's changing people's lives one apartment at a time, Mr. Brad Sumrok. I appreciate you coming down. You flew right in from Miami, and I hope the travels weren't too burdensome for you. Came in with your bags in hand,
It was a great flight, man. It was 5 hours on time, which is pretty rare these days.
Yeah, and I know you got to work the entire time. You were bragging about that.
I did. Everybody else was sleeping, and I was working. There's something wrong with that.
Yeah, well, I love the grind. I love the grind. So, Brad, give the audience a 20,000-foot overview of what you do.
Yeah, so I do apartment syndication. And what that means is when I first heard that term, it was really complicated. I didn't even know what a syndication was. So imagine creating a community where people collaborate and they pool their time, their money, their resources, and their knowledge together. And then they go out and buy an asset, in my case, an apartment building that's bigger than any single individual could buy on their own. And so we pool all of our resources together and we go buy apartment buildings. And the reason we do that is there's a lot of advantages of buying more units in one transaction, like professional management, economies of scale, not to mention how we're changing communities of, generally working class people that live in these buildings. So it's a big impact.
I like to start my show off with the same question, which is what I ask everybody. Now, what is your morning routine?
What is my morning routine? Well, what if I said I don't have a routine, the same routine every morning? But I will tell you this, before 10 o'clock every day is me time. I love to wake up early. I love to work out. I actually start my day with coffee, believe it or not. You won't find that in any of the personal development books, will you?
Well, believe it or not, I think a lot of people, a lot of high performers do start their day with
I
coffee.
love coffee, and I love the name of your show, Coffeez for Closers, right? But everywhere I go, I actually seek out I'm getting off of the question, but I seek out the best independent coffee shops. So I wake up in the morning and I'm wide awake though. I don't need coffee to wake up. I wake up usually at 6 a.m. without an alarm, and I jump out of bed and I'm ready to go. It's my peak hours. And so I have a coffee, and then what I do is I outline what I want to achieve for the day. And I outline why I want to achieve it. I don't do it at nighttime because I'm not a night person. I do it at 6 a.m. with coffee. So I get my whole day organized. I get my whole day planned. And usually I even look forward to the week. Then I read a Bible verse. I love reading the Bible verse, whether you're a Christian or not. There's a lot of, and I am a Christian, by the way, but I love reading the Bible verse because there's a lot of wisdom in it. So I do that. It kind of gets me grounded for the day. And then I go do exercise. And the exercise I love to do, I love doing weight training. I love doing running, especially out in Miami, where I'm renting an apartment these days. And I love doing yoga. So I alternate those, and I do it every single morning. I'll be doing it here tomorrow from the hotel. So I do that, and then I eat a nutritious breakfast. I eat breakfast every morning. I never skip breakfast. If I'm going to skip a meal, I'm going to skip dinner. It's better to go to bed hungry. So my health is really important. Health is wealth. So what I do every day to recap is I wake up early without an alarm, have my coffee, plan my day, do my exercise, and that gives me that me time, and it allows me to have, personal wins before I ever do any Zoom meetings or business calls or anything like that.
You got to start the day with some me time and some personal wins.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm with you on that same boat, very, very similar morning routine as well. Now, out of all the businesses you could have entered into, why'd you pick apartment syndication?
Yeah, I never thought I'd be doing this, man. Honestly, my parents, neither one of them finished college. And my dad worked for an engineer, and I remember he made a lot of money, relatively compared to my dad. So, we would vacation I grew up in Pittsburgh, and we would go on vacation to Lake Erie and the shores of New Jersey. And my dad's boss, would take his family to Hawaii on an airplane. I had never been on an airplane until I, had my own money to go on air vacations on a jet airplane. So I studied hard, got good grades, went to college, did everything right. So I thought I got an engineering degree and an MBA. But after 17 years of working in corporate America and losing my job not once, but twice, I found myself in my early 30s. And I was kind of like, hey, I'm not as secure as I thought. And I'm not where I want to be financially. So if you ever did everything right and you're still not where you want to be, um, that's where I was. And I didn't really know what to do, but I was living in Houston, Texas at the time. And on hot summer days, we like to spend time indoors. So we go to like malls. And back then there were bookstores, stores like Barnes and Noble and Borders. You probably remember these, Joe. And there's not many of them around anymore, right? Because everything's all online now. But I would go to these stores on Saturday and Sunday and look at the top selling books. And I'll never forget in 2001, I picked up a book. It was purple and gold called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And you probably know that book, right? Everyone in real estate knows that book. And I read that book and it gave me so many ideas. It changed the trajectory of my life because everything I was doing. And then the second book, was the cash flow quadrant. He talked about employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. And I realized I was an employee. And then he talked about how business owners and investors, generally, they have more freedom, they have more time, they have a better quality of life, they can make more money with unlimited upside, and they pay less taxes. And then Kiyosaki in these books said, hey, one of the best ways to be a business owner or investor, a business that has low barriers to entry, was real estate. So I heard of a lot of people doing real estate investing, and Kiyosaki actually pointed it out, but I wasn't sure where to start. So I was living in Houston, Texas, and I started going to real estate investing seminars. And that's how I got started. I went to a seminar. I was very skeptical. I came in thinking like, hey, I got 2 degrees. Like, what am I going to learn here? But I had this part of me that was curious, and I was open. And day 1, I remember walking in and I sat in the back of the room with my arms crossed. Day 2, I got there early. I was in the front row taking, shit tons of notes. And I learned what they taught and took massive action.
So you were in your 30s at that point.
Yes.
It wasn't until you were in your 30s you realized I need to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I had never had, I didn't have that roadmap. Like my blueprint for success was college, and then another degree,
and then in grad school.
Yeah, and actually
the traditional normal like route. Like that's in my culture. That's all they push is like college, grad school. That's
and when I lost my job the second time, right before I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I actually started studying for the LSAT because I was like, okay, I have an engineering degree. That got me my first job. Then I got an MBA that got me 6 figures. And then I got, let go, and then I got fired. And so I was like, okay, well, what else should I do? Get a law degree.
I'm going to get a law degree so I could sue these people every time they fire me.
Exactly. But I'm so glad that I picked up the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. And I wasn't even looking for that book. Like, I would go to these bookstores and look at the best. I would always read nonfiction bestsellers. And at the time I was, and I still am, I was, really interested in my health too. So I was always interested, besides in, business and real estate, I was interested in working out and eating right. So I would go there and I would buy books on, remember the Body for Life book, Bill Phillips, Transform Your Life in 12 Weeks. I would read those kind of books. I would read nonfiction books. I would read books about, Die Broke and The Richest Man in Babylon and Think and Grow Rich and Tony Robbins stuff. Like I would read that kind of stuff.
I mean, it helps all of us evolve. All those, I love those books.
Yeah.
And that's still my preferred reading material as well.
Yeah, mine too. I love reading. I still read a lot.
So you read a book and then you're like, I'm going to start a business. What was your first business you started?
Well, like I said, I went to the seminar and it was $500. And I'll never forget, like, I was, in my early 30s in Houston, my friends at work, we'd work all week. We hate Mondays. Wednesday was hump day. And then Friday was like the best day of the week. Right. And it was summertime and they go out on the lake. So they're out on the lake and I'm going to the seminar. I pay $500. They're all making fun of me. Well, at the end of the seminar, they offered a 5-figure mentorship program and I actually bought it. And it was a lot of money for me at the time. But I committed. I was like, hey, if I'm going to invest this kind of money in a mentorship program, I'm going to make sure that I actually do the work, And so I went out and so to answer your question, the first business I started was an apartment building. And this was not a syndication. I didn't know about syndication back then. And I bought a 32 unit building for $1 million in Houston, Texas. I put 200,000 down, got an $800,000 loan, and I became the proud owner of a 32 unit building back in 2002.
You still own that same building?
No, I sold it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm so fascinated by this because, your journey is it's not a normal journey. Someone to start at your age, you started in your early 30s, your entrepreneur journey, and then started just immediately investing. How were you capitalized enough to start investing into apartment buildings with a W-2 job?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So if you remember, I worked for 17 years in corporate America, right? And like I said, I did everything, when I say right, in quotation marks. I don't know if the audience could see me doing this quotation marks with
No,
my
they
hands.
can.
Like,
They
okay,
can.
so I did everything right. And part of that was living below my means and saving money. So I maxed out my IRA and 401k contributions, and I saved money. So, I was an engineer and an MBA. I generally made six figures, for the last decade of, between my age of, say, 27 and 35 before I quit my job. And so I saved my money. And so that property, that first property, I needed 200,000 down. And that was a majority of my savings that I put into that building. And how I got into syndication was my second building was another 30 units. If you remember Monopoly, right? You try to buy like the on the board, the same colors, right? So you could convert 3 houses into a hotel. Well, I learned how to convert 3 houses into an apartment building, but I never did houses, so to speak. Like, so I bought 32 units on one block, and then there was a 30 unit property on the next block. And so I bought that one too. So now I had 62 units a block away from each other. And that wiped me out financially, meaning like all my liquidity was in those 62 units. So now I have 62 units and I have these properties and they're cash flowing and I'm making, 4,000 a month on property one and 3,000 a month on property two, but I have no more money. Now a broker brings me a 250 unit deal. And what do? Well, what most people do is they'd be like, well, I can't buy it. I don't have the money. Or I got to sell these properties and get my money out of them, right? But since I was going to investor meetup groups and I had joined that mentorship program and they would do like meetups every month. So I was networking, I was building the network and people would tell me, hey, Brad, if you find another deal, like I'll put money in with you. And so, fast forward, a broker brings me a 250 unit deal. I didn't have any of my own money. It was all tied up in 62 doors, but I was able to raise $2 million from 27 people and buy 250 units. And what I learned from that, Joe, was easier to do 250 units and hire a professional management company than it was to buy 32 and do everything yourself. And Kiyosaki calls that, the difference between being self-employed and doing all the work yourself and a business owner where you hire professional management.
So you did the 250 door deal.
Yeah.
And you just raised capital for it.
Well, I raised capital and I oversaw the management company. So you don't just raise the money and do nothing. You still got to like work with the management company. And to me, it's like as the owner and you hire the management company, you're still working with the management company to make sure the asset's performing.
Yeah. The thing is that's crazy is that you jumped into such a big multi-unit property with such little experience. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, how do you get experience? Is you either get your 10,000 hours on your own, and that takes you 5 years, or you leverage somebody else's 10,000 hours. And that's why, like, I believe so much in mentorship. Like the way to take a decade and turn it into days is to hire a mentor. Like I still we met at a mastermind. Like how much does that cost us? That's where we met. I just got back from a Tony Robbins event.
But you spent a lot on self-development. I mean, being at that mastermind, going to this conference you're going to now. I mean, you're always investing in your development.
Yeah, well, that's the secret to success, at least mine. Like the best investment you can make is in real estate, but what kind? Some people would say, I'm going to say apartments, but I'm going to tell you it's the real estate between your ears.
You're right.
It's that real estate between your ears. It's the real estate of your mind that you always got to keep investing in, because no matter how much you succeed, there's always somebody ahead of you in anything.
Yeah.
Like, and so why don't you leverage their experience? We all hear about you're in the lending business. You hear about OPM, right? Other people's money.
Yeah.
But
Well,
what
that's all we
about,
lend.
OPE, other people's experience? What about OPT, other people's time? Like, these are huge.
That's been, honestly, to your point, that's been one of the biggest benefits of this podcast, is that I get someone like yourself who's built a huge enterprise, and I ask you questions that are completely relatable to how to navigate in my own model, my own business, and then I get you as now a contact, right? And people really undervalue, and actually, Dan said this is like my Dan Fleischman. He said, my greatest assets are my phone, the people in my phone, everybody who I know, and then it stands true definitely for him because he knows everybody, but it's becoming that way for me too because and that's going to be a huge benefit with you with the podcast. It's like get your podcast guests are all going to be influential figures.
I mean, it's they say your network is your net worth,
That's
right?
definitely the truth.
And I think that's true to a point. And let me clarify this though. And I'm
You
agreeing.
still have to have
By
a
the way,
net
I'm
worth,
agreeing
buddy.
with you though.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I'm agreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. But I hear people say this all the time. But what a lot of people do is networking is they go to an event and they pass out business cards or they collect business cards and they come home with 300 business cards. To me, that's not
networking.
effective.
Yeah.
What's effective is you go there and say, hey, if I could walk away, like I went to this, where I met you. And I said, hey, if I could have like 5 or 10 meaningful conversations and walk away with 2 or 3 contacts that maybe I could change the trajectory of their life, or maybe they could change the trajectory of my life. That to me is effective networking. It's not just grabbing business cards.
No, it's having meaningful conversations
It's having
at a deep level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole gist of the podcast.
Yep.
You're gonna have a 1 hour coffee date, unobstructed, undivided attention, eyes gazed, and candidly, as weird as that looks and sounds to everyone listening, it just doesn't happen anymore. You know why? Because attention is the new currency, and your attention is so like it's it's been taken from you. So it's hard for you and I both, especially me, to focus on one person, one subject, one conversation. I really candidly don't do that outside of, these podcasts.
That's really interesting, right? Like we've been talking now for what, 15 minutes and we haven't looked at our phones.
Yeah, yeah.
But like if we weren't doing this conversation,
You would be
we
looking at
probably
your
would have
phone.
been looking at our phone like 6 or 7 times already.
You would
Think
have.
about that.
And think about how, like that's the world we're in, and it's impacting everything from, you know, from events to how people meet each other to overall socialization to our children, the children who, now all their attention is everywhere.
Yeah.
They're all ADD. It used to be a superpower, now it's just the standard.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Yeah. So what do you think was the underlying motivation for you to start your company?
Well, look, I always wanted to be successful, and success to me at one point, and isn't it interesting though, like what is success, right? Like, and to me, my first definition of success when I was a boy was, having a good job. I remember my parents used to say that my dad's boss made 80,000 a year and they went to Hawaii on vacations. So that was like imprinted on my mind that like, man, I got to make 80K a year so I can take my family to Hawaii. And now I'm like an engineer and I get an MBA and I'm making 100,000 a year. And my mom used to tell me, Brad, once you make 100,000 a year, like that's like your life is incredible. And I'm making 100,000 a year. And you know what? I had this experience of like, I have a car payment. I start traveling. Like I didn't travel out of the country until I'm 30, but like I'm traveling. I got a car payment. I'm paying for a place to live. I got expenses. And I'm like, I feel like I'm barely getting by. And then I get laid off. And then now I have job insecurity for the first time. So I can't remember what your question was, but like, it really just hit me that like, yeah, it's like, well, what was the thing that caused me to get into business, right? It was like,
Yeah. What motivated you?
well, I think it was actually like freedom and control. Like you think, a lot of people think that if you get a job, it's secure. But after you lose it, not once, but twice, it's not secure.
That's right.
It's not secure. And so to me, it's risky to have a job. A lot of people, it's risky to be an entrepreneur. To me, it was risky to have a job. I have not had a job with another company except, my own business since I was 35 years old. That's 22 years ago. And I've never lost my job in the last 22 years because it's my company and I'm in control of my own destiny.
But there has been those shaky times, I'm sure in this time frame.
Well, sure. Like 2008, 9, 10 was one of them. And actually the last 2 years has been,
Rough
challenging in commercial real estate, multifamily. But the thing is, like, everything goes through a cycle, and if you play it smart, like, there's a famous guy, there's a very famous guy out there that says cash is trash, live as if you're broke, put all your money into assets. If I had done that in 2008, like I had deals in 2008 that I had to feed money into, because of the recession. And then one of my properties got hit by a hurricane and it's in a recession. And if I didn't have liquidity, personal liquidity, like I would have lost that property. And the same thing happened in 2023. Interest rates went up, taxes went up, insurance went up. The triple negative perfect storm is hitting like multifamily after a decade of amazing times. And there's a couple properties out of my portfolio I have to put money into. And if I didn't have the money to put in, you could see what's happening in the news every day or every week. There's a somebody losing their deal. There's distressed properties. There's
been one of those stories
in default, right? Yeah.
You'd have been one of those texts, sold this property for whatever the taxes were on it.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so what do you think has been some of the biggest hardships you've overcome since you started your company?
Hardships since I started let's talk about that because I really like to think of my company as being, I have two separate businesses, right? So I got the apartment investing business. And in that business, I've really scaled up like over the past, say, 5 or 6 years. My first investment was in 2002, that 32 unit building. And in the first decade, from 2002 to 2012, I scaled up to about 1,000 units. And I transitioned from buying my own deals with my own money to syndicating deals, which, I described what a syndication is. It's, groups of people buying deals where I'm the general partner, taking ownership interest in the property where I control the deal. So the first decade, I go from a 0 to 1,000. The second decade, I go from 1,000 to 10,000 units as a syndicator. So that's like exponential growth. So like,
how many units do you have now?
I'm in about 7,700. So I've been a net seller over the last few years.
And it all started from like your little 20 unit.
Oh yeah, that 32 unit. Yeah.
Which you own by yourself.
I owned it by myself. Yeah. So there's that business. And the biggest challenge has been like, looking backwards, I could have scaled, like I tried doing everything myself, Joe, those first 10 years. Like even though I was syndicating, I was able to do like one deal a year. Maybe I would do like 200 units a year. And I would have to find the deals, analyze the deals, raise the money, do all the due diligence, close the deals, manage the management company, handle all the investors, the paperwork, the tax returns, the K-1s, doing it all myself. So I was able to do, like a deal every year or two. And then I learned about not only syndicating deals as a general partner, but now I have like a team of people that will go out and do deals as co-general partners. And so we divide up that work. So we buy, like, instead of me buying 150 units with me as the sole general partner and a bunch of passive investors, I might go and buy 400 units where maybe me and 3 or 4 other people are the general partners. And so we divvy up all that work of like, we got people that underwrite the deals. We got people that manage the deals. We got people that raise the equity for the deals. I mean, we all have substantive roles in the business, but we kind of divide and conquer. And so we could do bigger deals, have better scale, better management, and actually do less work on each deal than I was doing individually. So just figuring out how to scale up was a big challenge. And then the other challenge, of course, was when 2008 and 9 came around. And then again, like 2022, we hit the top of the market. And then, we had a downturn, but now we're coming out of that. So in the investing business, those were the challenges. The other business that I'm in is 11 years ago, I started my own event and mentorship company. And that's a business that I'm very passionate about because that's how I got started. So as you know, I do events and I do mentorships and masterminds. So not only do I attend masterminds, I actually created a platform where I help people syndicate deals. And that's a business that, like, think of a guy like Tony Robbins, right? He does Unleash the Power Within. He does his platinum partnership. He does business mastery, and he's a business owner in 114 companies. And so that's kind of my vision is like, I'm a general partner in 37 apartment buildings, over 7,000 doors. And I do events where I help people do what I've been able to do. So that's, and I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, by the way. I just got back from one of his events.
Wow.
So I not only mentor people, but I always say this, every great mentor has a mentor. They have somebody that they're learning from, somebody they're modeling. They're modeling somebody.
At what age did you decide you needed a mentor?
My first professional mentor was back in 2001 when I went to that real estate program. That was when I realized I needed a mentor. But then, like, looking back, I would honestly say my first set of mentors were my parents.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize it at the time, but like they taught me to study hard, get good grades, and go to school. Like, without that foundation, I don't know what I would have done. Like, some parents kick you out when you're 18. Some parents make you pay rent. Some people, don't have a mother and a father. They might be raised by a single mom or a single dad. So I was fortunate to have like stability in my family when I was growing up, and they guided me, i.e. mentored me to go to college and get good grades. I didn't appreciate it at the time. When I first started getting into business, I was angry at first. I'm like, Mom, Dad, why didn't you teach me to be an entrepreneur?
Why did they did? It would have been so much easier than getting a master's in whatever.
I know, but they didn't know.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I learned about your mentor, and it's why you got to choose them wisely, is like you can't have a mentor teach you something they haven't done themselves. Like, you can have a life coach. That's different. There are life coaches out there that they could coach you through anything. But like, a mentor is different than a coach. A mentor is somebody that's actually been down the yellow brick road that you want to go down. So like, if you want to go into business and you want to learn from somebody, rather than going to school and getting an MBA, like, go work with somebody, either work with them or for them, or mentor under them so they could teach you the ropes of that business.
How does one go about finding a mentor?
Well, I mean, look, with social media and Google searches and YouTube searches, it's not that hard. Like, you type in like what it is that you want to do and you find people, but the best way is through word of mouth. Like, it's like, who do you know that, like in my case, if you'd say, hey, who do you know that does apartment syndications? And look, some of the best apartment investors and syndicators, they don't want to mentor somebody. Like, they'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, when I look at my own career and somebody asked me like, well, Brad, why do you mentor people? Well, the truth is, if I had focused just on doing transactions, I'd have thousands more units and have a lot more money. Like, I have a lot of friends like that did that. Like, they started their apartment investing companies in 2007 and 8 after I bought my first deal. And they own tens of thousands of units and have like Gulfstreams and big companies. And
do you have any friends here in Newport like that?
No, but they're mostly in Texas, where my company is based. But I'm literally talking about companies that like I know a guy that's a friend of mine that's got 59,000 doors, that got like 28,000 doors. They got 42,000 doors, 12,000 doors. But that's what they focus on. Where I have like 7,700 doors, and
that's a ton of doors.
But yet, like, my passion is actually doing the education platform. And why is it? Like, people always ask me that. Maybe you'd ask me as the next question, but what I tell people is doing deals puts money in the bank account. But when I help people get into the apartment business and I see them succeed, quit their jobs or buy their dream home or retire their spouse or pay for their kids' education, that puts like a deposit in my soul. So, there's the financial rewards of doing transactions, but there's also why do you think, so many people love to do events and seminars and coach people and all that kind of stuff? Because it's fulfilling for some people.
It is.
It's fulfilling. It's
But
rewarding.
it's 10 times more fulfilling if you do it at a purpose, at a serving.
Yeah, exactly. Like I never got into that business for money, although I've made money mentoring people, but I never got in the business for the money.
There's a lot of opportunity on the horizon with apartment buildings, multifamily. But it's not like multifamily is facing the same thing as commercial. Do you think it's, multifamily could be in trouble?
Well, when we talk commercial, there's all different types, right? Like we got industrial, we got
this industrial is not in trouble, but office commercial is in trouble.
Office is probably in trouble. And look, if you look at a life cycle of an industry, right? Office is kind of like in a decline, right? Ever since the pandemic.
Right.
Like, and I don't know, I think it's recovering a little bit, but like, are we ever going to see the day again where like you have a company? Do you have remote employees?
We have 900 people and we maybe have 80 people in house here.
So
the rest all remote.
So 90% of your team is remote.
90% of the entire organization is remote.
Yeah. Now in the old days, it would have been like the opposite, right? It would have been like 90% come to the office.
Yeah, it's crazy that's why I'm like, you still have Silicon Valley where people are working from home.
So I think office and retail are declining. Obviously retail, like, we talked about, the bookstores, Barnes and Noble, Borders. These were what, billion-dollar companies. They're out of business, right? So office and retail,
we still have Barnes and Noble.
They're declining.
Still a great place.
Yeah, but they're declining.
Yeah.
Multifamily, we're in a winter season of multifamily, but the industry itself is in its prime. Like, people need a place to live. We're becoming a renter nation. It's becoming more and more expensive for a working class family to buy a home, right? Like, I just looked at like the median priced home in the United States is what?
500 something thousand.
Yeah. Or even like in Texas and Florida, like where it's not as expensive, but it's still like 400,000, 450,000 in Dallas and Tampa. And so how does a family making 60 or 70,000 a year buy a $450,000 home? They're much more likely to rent a 3-bedroom apartment for $1,800 a month.
Even those are going up.
Yeah. Well, it's going up too, but it's still more affordable. So I look at this thing called affordability gap. And what affordability gap measures, Joe, is like, what's the median PITI? And, principal, interest, tax, and insurance for a median priced home might be $3,200 a month for a median priced home, where a median priced apartment might be $1,800 a month. So there's like this $1,400 a month gap. And that's why I'm so bullish on multifamily rentals. So it's not like a declining industry. It's just the season that we're in where interest rates went up.
And now the season is coming back down.
I believe so. Like, I can't foresee the future with 100% accuracy, but like, I've been through the 2008 downturn and I see some signs like the Fed's going to lower rates. We're going to have an election, and no matter who wins the election, we're going to have 4 years of certainty. Like, and like capital markets and Wall Street, they like predictability and certainty. So whether we have a Trump administration or a Harris administration, and that's a whole nother conversation about how either of those two will impact things. But either way, capital markets and Wall Street and the banking industry, we're going to know what we got. We're going to know what we're going to deal with for the next 4 years. So I see a lot of stability and I see a lot of opportunity.
Now, outside of, like, we talked about this briefly, but outside of grinding all the time, because you grind a lot, you work harder than 99.9% of people. Do you have any other like hobbies that you enjoy outside of working out?
So, well, I'm glad you said working out, but one of my, let me go into that a little bit. Cause one of my,
How do you relax?
Something I don't do for money that I would if I weren't doing real estate is I would probably Like I love health and fitness and wellness. Like I eat tight, I work out, I take my health seriously. And part of it isn't just working out and eating right. It's like doing yoga. It's like having like mindfulness. Like yoga changed my life. Like it really gave me that 30 minutes to an hour a day where my mind isn't thinking about what I got to do, about what's next. It's like at first it just made me like, I'm stressing out, like trying to do the move, like doing these uncomfortable human positions, doing yoga. But then what I realized is like, man, my mind ain't racing when I'm doing yoga. Like I'm actually present. So being present is huge. So I love that about, yoga specifically. But another thing I love to do is travel. And that sounds cliche, but I travel like a lot. Like I just got back from Argentina 2 days
Yeah.
ago. Like, and I was in,
Always somewhere.
dude, I'm going to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and India later in October. I was in Argentina earlier this year. Last year, I went to Nepal. I went to Bhutan. I went to Rwanda. I went to Botswana. Like I go to cool places that most people don't get a chance to go to.
Yeah, for my geography experts out there, like, do you know where all those places are? No, I don't even know.
Yeah. So a lot of people say, hey, I like to travel, but like, I don't want to.
You really like to
I
travel.
love to travel. And that's important to me. Like travel is important to me. And it's about like the cultural experience, simple things in life. Like I love walking on the beach. Like I love nature. I love coffee. Like whenever I travel, like I seek out, like it sounds boring because I'll say, well, what I don't play golf. Like I don't like, I do sports. I do tennis here and there. But I don't have like, I'm not a passionate like golfer or musician, or I don't make my own music, and I actually love going to events. Like when people say, what do you do for fun? I'm like tomorrow I'm going to be attending an event. So I only not do events, but I go to events.
You're going to an educational seminar.
Yeah.
For development.
Yes, I am. And it's fun.
It's different than going to Coachella.
Yeah. Like I've never been to Coachella. I've never been to Burning Man. So it's, some people might say, hey, that's boring, but it's like, so for me, what do I do for fun besides doing my own events and mentoring and coaching people and doing deals, which I actually find fun. But if you take that away, I love going to events. I love learning. I love being a student. I love learning new things. I actually like being a beginner at some things. Like imagine getting out of your comfort zone and like learning something for the first time. Like, a couple of years ago, I bought a one wheel, the skateboards with the wheel in the middle. Like I bought that and I actually learned how to use it. And I fell a few times and it was uncomfortable, but I'm good at it now.
Yeah, you're pretty good at the one wheel?
I'm good at a one wheel. Like if I could freak people out, I see people on the street using a one wheel and I'm like, hey man, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's a one wheel. And I'm like, can I try it? And they're thinking, oh man, like you don't want to get on this thing. You're going to mess yourself up. And then I get on it and I ride it pretty good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you ride a skateboard when you were young?
Barely. Yeah. I'm probably more adventurous now in my 50s than I was when I was 15.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Keeps me young, man.
It is. It is. Now, what's your favorite quote?
Favorite quote? Well, I'm borrowing this from Tony Robbins, but it's the secret to living is giving. And I find that when you give with no expectation of receiving anything in return, it's a really fulfilling, uplifting experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you were to tell your 20-year-old self to build wealth right now, what would you tell him to do?
I would just say, get started. Like, when I was 20, I was in my third year of engineering school. And I would say like, and it's funny because even now when I'm thinking about how to answer this question, like my whole physiology slowed down. Did you notice?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, but like age is not a limit. Like so many people think that like, well, I got to start here. Like, let's say even in real estate, people have this, just like I thought, like I got to get a job or, and then get another degree. It's like so many people go into real estate and they're like, well, I'm going to start, flipping houses, or like, I'm going to start with a single family or a duplex and then a fourplex and then somehow graduate to 16 units. And then maybe someday I could do a 60 unit syndication. And you know what? That's not true. Like anybody that is committed, and invest in the real estate between their ears could go out and do a big deal. And I'm not taking this lightly. Like, look, man, there's work, there's risk, there's time, there's energy. Like if you want to get rich quick, like don't come
enter
and
this
see me.
space.
Like don't look me up. Don't
No.
go to my website. Don't come to my events because it's not get rich quick. But you know what?
Real estate is never get rich quick.
Neither is like going to school for 4 years or 8 years or 12 years and being an engineer or an attorney or a doctor, man. It's like 4, 8, 12 years of education. And so you could go faster by being a business owner, but you got to know what you're doing. You got to surround yourself with people that are doing it, and you got to understand the upside and the downside.
Now, how important is taking risks in your business?
I mean, there's risk in everything you do. Like every deal,
with these kind of deals, like, because is it like, are you, when you see a deal, you're like, wow, there's a lot of profit in this deal, but it's going to be tremendously risky. Let's not do it.
I mitigate the risk by, like there's a process that I go through to like, is it in a good market? Are there jobs being created or jobs being taken away? Are they people moving there or people moving out of there? So like there's a recipe that you could follow that I teach that's going to stack the cards in your favor. But just to be clear, there's always risk. There's risk that interest rates could go up in an unprecedented manner. We didn't count on that happening.
No, we didn't know that
the government could shut down the country and now people can't be evicted for non-payment of rent. You can't underwrite for that type of stuff, right? That's called a black swan event. And a couple of these things happened in the last few years. But even outside of that, like there's risk in everything. But let me just tell you this, there was risk in me having a job, like what I thought was secure and going to work every day and just putting my head down and keeping a low profile. Like that didn't work out either. I find myself unemployed not once, but twice. So like, look, there's risk in everything you do, but the way you mitigate risk is through education, not like a degree, but like, invest in, when I say education, go to events, get a mentor, join a mastermind, surround yourself with people that are doing it and have a team of experts around you. And that's going to mitigate risk. It doesn't eliminate it, but it's going to mitigate it.
Now, are you using any AI technology to really kind of look at the value, assess value, help mitigate risk mitigation?
So yes and no. It's interesting because I just sat through an AI presentation and I would call myself like, like so many others, like I'm using AI to like maybe help with some email campaigns and copywriting and messaging and stuff like that. But I'm still kind of in the playing stages. But there's so much upside in AI right now and in any type of business, including real estate, including like underwriting and messaging and capital raising and all that type of stuff. But I would also say that like it's still got to be you.
Yeah.
Like it's still got to be
AI
you.
could still be you.
Yeah. And that's what that's where I see the biggest opportunity is if you take like one of the projects I'm working on now is I have like hundreds of hours of content, from every event I've ever done, from every podcast I've ever been on, from any Zoom meeting I've ever done. And we're feeding it into these AI engines and it's going to create a Brad GPT instead of a Chat GPT.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you started building out your AI.
Yeah. So that's something we're working on right now.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Now, do you think right now with the way that youth are being told, because you and I both discussed this, you're highly educated. Do you think college is still as important as it was when you went to school?
No, I mean, look, I believe, and this is like, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be an accountant, there's training involved. Like, it doesn't occur to me that you could just go and be a doctor, without the training. Right. So I'm not advocating that, but the whole idea of like, hey, I'm an 18-year-old. I don't have a clue to what I want to do with my life. Let's just go to college because it's the next step, become a C or D student, you study
communications,
let me just say, like, I was going to say something politically incorrect. I don't know
I knew you were talking about something you wanted to talk about, some BS.
You study some sort of, gender study basket weaving degree. I'm just being facetious here. Probably going to have people hating on me for that. But hey, look, so like just getting some, I'll call it a bullshit degree is with everything out there online and through
Total waste.
masterminds and stuff. It's like, to me, it's a waste of time and money. I would rather see somebody become an apprentice of a business owner and fast track themselves into the business world.
I agree.
Yeah.
Now, how important to you is like going to masterminds events and these conferences? And why would someone who hasn't ever attended them, they're too boastful? Oh, why do I need masterminds, or why do I need these conferences? Like, for me, I love attending those things for many reasons. How important is it to you,
Well,
and
let me
why?
just be real here. I can't say it's everything, but it's next to everything. We would have never met if we didn't go to that 100M event.
Yeah.
And I believe we're just beginning to have a relationship. Like, I'm here in your offices, I'm learning about your company, we're having this conversation, you're learning about me. We may be able to collaborate and create something or support each other's businesses.
We're both in the same line of work.
And I've met at that same event. I've had meaningful conversations with several other people. And then you multiply that by 10, because this year alone in 2024, not only do I do my own events and masterminds, but I was counting, I just got back from my 10th event that I attend. And then I'm here in Orange County attending another one tomorrow. So I'm getting educated and informed on different topics. Call it leadership, communication, negotiation, building a better team, being a better leader, being a better human, So, but I'm getting more than the content. I'm getting connected with other people that are committed to, let's just say, when you're around people that are committed to upgrading their human experience in any domain, whether it's in business or in real estate or in health or in numbers or in, anything that's possible to anything valuable, there's somebody that can help you accelerate the process and do what I call turn decades into days. And so to me, it's next to everything. It's far more valuable than formal education. I think it was Jim Rohn that said, specialized education, like the kind that you get in conferences and mentorship programs and masterminds, could earn you a fortune, where formal education, which was my experience getting an engineering degree and an MBA, will get you a job.
Great advice. And then for those listening right now, if you're not involved in a masterminds or some sort of business group or a meetup, like, you need to get involved. This is everything. This has totally changed the trajectory of my life, allowed me to start a podcast, allowed me to, go viral on social media, etc. It's all about who you know. It's all about who you know. Now, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received. Well, it's probably going to be repetitive, but you got to invest in yourself. Like, I think Warren Buffett said it. He said the best investment is going to be the one you make in yourself.
Yeah, he did say that.
And I've already said, I honestly, I hesitated because I was trying to come up with something else, but I can't. Like, that's the best advice. And for some people, that could be formal education. Like, just to be clear, like, I'm not knocking it in every case. Like, for some people, there's certain things that, like, you need a skill set that could be taught in a formal program, whether it's a degree program or accredited university or something like that. But what I find, like, in the world of business, is it's going to be outside of that arena.
Now, what's the most painful thing or the hardest thing you've had to overcome when you built your business?
Well, look, this may not be, I'm going to try to keep it as brief as I can, but this is a great question. And I want to share this thing because for decades, I've bought lots of buildings, transformed communities. I was named the Apartment Investor of the Year by the National Apartment Association. Made a lot of money for myself and my investors, did a lot of good work. And then in my mentoring company, I've helped hundreds of people, like, achieve financial freedom, buy communities, uplift the properties, make it a better place. And I craved to be, like, in the media, right? Because, we're all taught, like, hey, there's, if you could get in the media, especially national media, like, that's good, right? And so have you ever seen like people's websites and things that say like as seen on
Yeah.
CNBC,
Yep.
ABC,
Yep.
Fox News? Well, you and I both know that most of those are paid sponsorships. And I've done some of that. Like you pay to be on a interviewed by, a TV program or write a best-selling book. And there are gurus that teach how to do that and become an Amazon bestseller. And so like I wanted media attention for like the good work I was doing, but I never got it. And what happened was after all these years of doing good work, when 2022 multifamily peaked, and then we had this unprecedented rise of interest rates combined with like increases in expenses, inflation, labor costs went up, insurance costs went up, taxes went up. Well, jump into the conclusion here. In 2023, one of my former students that I mentored lost a bunch of money for his investors. And he was written up in the Wall Street Journal in a very bad way.
Oh my God.
And they found out that I was his real estate coach. And so they looped me into the article. And so I started for the first time had like negative media exposure. And then the Wall Street Journal called me and said, Brad, we want to do an article on you and your company because it occurs to us that you, more than anybody else, have made multifamily syndications available to like the retail investor, the people like I am, like the guy or gal that has a job, that has a W-2, and you've helped so many people get into multifamily investing. And now there's challenges in the industry. So we want to profile you. And Joe, I lost so much sleep. I'm thinking, oh my God, like this is going to be a disaster. Like it's going to be a hit piece. And I went to two mentors of mine that have both household names that everybody would know, but I'm not going to mention them. And one of them said, Brad, do not talk to the media. Like they will manipulate you, destroy you, and you're better served to just let them do their thing and ignore them. And the other said, you should talk to them and you need to engage and you need a PR team. So I went with the second option and I got a PR team and engaged with the Wall Street Journal. And let me just tell you that I flew up there. It was supposed to be a 1-hour interview. I was there for almost 4 hours.
Doesn't sound like an interview. It sounds like they're drilling you.
Yeah. And I was prepared like it was the biggest interview of my life. And let me just share with you that it turned out amazingly well because they saw I was a human being and not just this guy that like mentored this guy that lost people's money. It'd be like saying like, hey, I go to Tony Robbins events and Tony's my mentor. So like somehow Tony's responsible if I go out and lose people's money, or I went to Harvard and, lost people's money. So Harvard's responsible. So the Wall Street Journal, after all these months of doing their investigative journalism, this article came out in July of 2024 this year. And it was actually positive.
That's great.
It started off as, and they even told me, they said, Brad, this is not going to be a positive article on you, like, because we've heard things that concern us. But after they really, and I can tell you the Wall Street Journal, unlike some other media outlets that I've had experience with, the Wall Street Journal is committed to being fair and accurate and balanced. And they told me they would. And so they not only interviewed the one or two people that lost money in real estate, they interviewed tens of people, hundreds of people that went through my program that were successful. And several of those people were quoted in the Wall Street Journal.
That is amazing.
And so all of a sudden, like I went from being scared to being like, oh my God, this turned out actually positive. And it was a great experience. Like, like, honestly, like going up to New York and being interviewed. And then like they gave me a tour of their offices and I saw the poster. This was a few months before the journalist that just got released by Putin. Like his poster was all over their hallways, release Evan, stand with, met, that guy, Evan Gershowitz, probably mispronouncing his name, but I learned about him and I became a big advocate of like hoping and praying that he would be released. I'm not saying I support prisoner swaps, but just the fact that like I was up there and became aware of like, he was a political prisoner for like 480 some days. and convicted to 16 years in prison, and then finding out like he was released. I was happy for him and his family. Now, I'm not saying that I believe our government should do prisoner swaps, but I'm just saying I was happy he got to come home.
And you were happy that you were there for the experience, I guess.
Yeah. So look, I would say like, be careful what you ask for. I'm not a polarizing person. And at first, when I started to get negative media, and then of course, people online start saying shit about you that they don't even know. And they're like, oh, you're a sleazeball, you're a scammer, you're this, you're that. It's like, they don't even know me, but they're reading fake news in the media because look, the job of the media is to get clicks and eyeballs. And again, I used to think that people in the media were bad people, but they're not. They're just doing their job, and their job is to write articles that people actually read. And so when I went through this process, Joe, like there have been a couple other articles about me that aren't positive. And I like a year ago, I would have cried myself to sleep at night. Now I'm just like, look, they're just doing they're doing what they think is their job. I wish they would be fair and accurate and balanced like the Wall Street Journal, because I had a great experience with the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, you're not gonna, like we were saying earlier, good media, bad media, nobody really remembers. Nobody remembers.
Yeah.
Just the most important thing is that you're doing it. You're getting out in the media, and you're doing the best you can. You're serving. You're doing God's work. You're like trying to help people. And
well, that's what me and my team. And I was like, hey, we're going to keep doing good work because that's what we do.
Exactly.
We buy communities and we transform them, and we educate people to buy communities and transform them. And that's what we're going to keep doing.
So you think media obstacles have been primarily the biggest obstacles you've faced so far? Hasn't been like money. It hasn't been, bad land surveys or.
I mean, look, there have been challenges. Like I said, in 08 and 09, we had situations where we had to put money into deals. And out of all my deals that I'm in right now, and I'm in like 37 syndications, there's a handful that have challenges that we're putting money into. And if I didn't keep liquidity in reserve, I would be in more trouble.
Yeah.
But at the risk of being called, I don't want to say stupid, but like some people were like, well, Brad, why do you have so much money just sitting in a bank account when you could be earning a return on it? And I'm like, well, because
you gotta be ready.
There might be a rainy day.
Yeah.
And there was a rainy day in 2008 and 9. And so I call it having a rainy day fund. And I think
that helps your investors.
And I think it's smart to have, I think it's smart to have a rainy day fund. And I think investors should ask, if they're going to invest in an apartment building, they should ask the general partnership team, like, hey, have you been through a challenge before, and how have you overcome it? Have you ever had a deal that doesn't perform well? And everybody that's been in the business long enough will have a deal that doesn't perform well at some point. And then the question is, how did you deal with it?
Yeah.
Did you give the keys back to the bank and all the investors lost their money? Or were you able to get through the downturn and turn things around?
Have you ever had investors lose money?
Not at this point. And it's possible. Like now, and again, I want to be accurate with that. I've mentored people that have lost money in their deals.
Clearly, from the Wall Street Journal.
But none of my deals have lost money. Now, and I got to say that, and I want to look, it's really important to me that I'm accurate. There's deals right now that if I had to sell them today might be less than what I paid for them, but I'm not selling them today. That's the beauty of real estate.
Yeah.
Like over the long term, they go up in value, but over the short term, there could be a market cycle. Like for example, if I bought something at the beginning of 22, where the market was at its highest level, it may be worth a little less today.
That was, by the way, I feel like
it is at the beginning of 22, but I'm not selling it.
Yeah, that might be just in Texas where it really peaked in 2022.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing a lot of declines, but I only am seeing declines in Texas. That bought in.
Well, I mean, I'm in other markets too, like Tampa or Nashville.
Do you have any where you bought in 2022 that are upside down or hurting besides in Texas?
Well, like if we had to sell today,
we
would probably have a hard time. There's probably one or two that would have a hard time getting all of our equity out.
Yeah, but are they only in Texas, or there are others?
No, they're in different markets, like in the Sun Belt.
I'm just curious to see where are you seeing the most impacted equity wise?
Well, look,
I've
only most of my assets are in Texas and Florida.
Okay.
So, and then I have a few, like I have, a couple hundred units in Nashville. I have a couple hundred units in some other markets. I have a property in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm not in California. I'm not like on the East Coast or West Coast, except Florida. But even in Florida, I'm not in South Florida.
Here.
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't pencil here anyway.
No.
Not in California.
No. None of the deals I buy. That's why I don't buy in California. Yeah. I like to buy in landlord and business friendly environments.
Yeah. This is not
it. This
is the worst of all of them. Is there a specific business principle or a mindset that you have when running your organization?
Well, to me, it's the partner, and surround yourself with people that are, truly committed and that are, I don't want to say better than you, but I'll say like better than you or have different skill sets.
I mean, shoot, you're going to the most brilliant masterminds on the planet. Some of those people are a lot better than both of us.
But let's say I'm going to do a deal. Like if I'm really good at raising capital and investor relations or securing deals from brokers, but I'm less passionate or less attuned into like managing the renovations, then I want to partner with somebody that's really good at managing the renovations. And I don't see that happen all the time. Like, sometimes, there's a saying, birds of a feather flock together. So you take two big picture guys that are really good at networking and sourcing deals and being on social media, and they go out and do a deal together. Well, who's paying attention to the details? Who's paying attention to like walking the units and doing the renovations? So like when I partner with people, I'm not just talking about the people we hire.
No, I'm
talking about equity partners
that
are in control of the deal. Like you need to have a mix of skill sets. You can't have all engineers either. Like I've seen the opposite. Like I've seen people that are like very financially, they're like 4 financial analysts will team up and they're like, we're the best financial underwriters in the world, but we don't own anything. And I'm like, yeah, because you guys aren't taking action.
Yeah, it's funny you say that blend because my partner is like the engineer.
Yeah,
I'm like the sales guy, the networker, the guy who puts that's bringing in the deals. Every business needs a yin and yang.
Yeah, like let's say in an apartment syndication, like say we're going to go out and buy, a $30 million property, and we need to raise $10 million and get a $20 million loan, and we're going to buy 200 units or 300 units. Well, first, I know what you're thinking. You might be like, you can't do that in California. That's why I don't buy in California, but you can do that in like Texas or Florida or Nashville, right? Buy that many units for that price point. But like, so what I'm going to look at is I'm going to be like, okay, I know what my skill sets are at this point and what I love to do. And so I'm going to partner with somebody, like you look at a syndication and you need somebody that's able to source the deals, meaning like someone that's in with the brokers and the owners. Right. Because it's not just what you know, it's who you know.
You're right.
Like if the brokers that control the deal flow don't know you, you're not going to get as many deals sent your way. So that skill set is like somebody that likes to network and hobnob and hang out with the brokers just to get the deals. Now, once you get the deals, you need an underwriter. Now, when you get a big company, you can hire an analyst, but when it's just you or your partners, you need in the beginning, you need an equity partner that's really good crunching the numbers and going through making sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, right? On the acquisition, the due diligence, making sure no stone is left unturned. It's usually not the big picture guy that's out there hunting the deals. Right. Then you need someone that's going to raise the money, like the salesperson, the marketer, the social media guy or the guy that's got the relationships or the gal that got relationships with investors and family offices or retail investors, and then you need somebody that's going to manage the asset after it's closing and manage. And remember, like about 30 minutes ago, I was sharing with you when I got into the syndication business, I tried to do all of that myself. And that's why I was able to do like one deal a year. But now I know what I'm really good at and what I have an aptitude for and a skill set to do. And so I partner with people that complement what I don't bring to the table. So together we could go out and buy big deals and get the money, get the debt, and have all the operations handled. And I have that in my investor teams that I put together.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that only comes with years of wisdom though.
Yeah.
So a couple last questions. One is about your goals. What's a personal goal that you have for yourself and a goal that you have for your business?
Well, a personal goal is, so I'm 57, and call me crazy, but like I think everybody, once they hit my age, they start, not everybody, but a lot of people get really interested in longevity. Like, how do we extend our life, but
Uh,
not only our lifespan, but our health span?
yeah, yeah. I'm big in longevity
Yeah.
and biohacking and
Yeah.
all this other.
So like, to me, the best, but I can tell you, because I know a lot of the big name people in that industry, right? But the best thing, I believe, is like, you eat right, you're good to your body, you get enough sleep, you get enough recovery. Like, I track all that stuff with my Aura ring. I'm religious about it. I could see when I'm off, I could see when I'm on, I could see the habits that make me on and see the habits that make me off. So like, my personal goal is to just keep, like, my personal goal is to be healthier at 60 than I was at 40. And right now at 57, I weighed myself this morning. I weigh myself every day. I was 168. And when I was 37, I was 185 pounds. So I'm like 15 pounds, 17 pounds lighter, 18 pounds lighter than I was 10 years ago.
20 years ago. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, what? I said 57. Yeah. 37. Yeah. So I'm 18 pounds lighter over
Yeah.
in 20 years. And the average American actually gains a pound a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So think about that. You gain a pound a year from the time you're 30 to 60. You're going to go from, normal to overweight
Yeah.
and
Easily.
unhealthy. And then you start getting like, you know, metabolical disease or pre-diabetic. And these are like, that's the precursor to like, all the cancers, the majority of the cancers, even the Alzheimer's is tied to metabolic disease, from what I understand from my own independent research, all the heart disease.
Yeah.
And so my personal goal is to avoid all that and to reverse it and slow it down. And then my business goal, 10 years ago, I wish I would have started a podcast. So I'm doing that this year in
Building your personal
2024. 10
brand.
years ago, I wish I would have started like a Sumrok Capital. Like everyone knows, Grant Cardone has Cardone Capital. I'm starting that this year.
Let's
Sumrok
go.
Capital is going. The Brad Sumrok podcast show is going. Um, Hiring more people. Like, I'm interviewing like more salespeople right now. So scaling up and building a more sales and marketing oriented organization, while at the same time providing like I've been like really good with fulfillment and delivery in my education business and creating hundreds of millionaires, but we're missing a few things. So we're going to be scaling up on that side of the business too, on the branding and the marketing. I'm going to have, now with AI, I'm going to have my first book done within 6 months by the end of the year.
Good. Yeah.
Ideally.
A lot of the same goals
Yeah.
we're sharing.
Yeah.
It's scaling up, building your brand.
Yeah.
And then one last question I have. I ask everybody this question. When you're in front of the pearly gates, what do you think God's going to tell you?
Man, my whole physiology changed here. What I hope he tells me is, I hope he says, come on in, because I, I was raised Catholic, but there was a period in my life for decades that I kind of turned away from all that. But, after going through some business and personal challenges, I feel like I've come back full circle to that core belief in God. And I believe there will be a day, and I want to live my life so that I get into those pearly gates.
The goal of that question is to change your physiology and just to kind of like we come full circle from your morning to what's God going to do. And
Yeah.
we live our life, me and you both, like a life of purpose, life of service, and that's all we can do. And I know that's how you live your life, and you're doing a great job.
Well, what's interesting, and this is kind of a deep subject. I'm sure we'll talk about it once we finish the show a little bit. But, I hear so many people talk, like even in real estate, in the seminar business, build generational wealth with real estate investing or leave a legacy. Like, to me, look, I don't have kids. Maybe I'll have them someday. But my legacy to me is the people I come in contact with in this lifetime, and not just in this lifetime, but in today. Like if I could make your life better today than it was before you met me, that's the legacy. I was in TSA pre-check in the Miami airport this morning. The line was really long. And there was you don't see that many friendly TSA agents, right?
No.
But there was a lady this morning that like changed my day. And she was smiling. And all these people were like, it was morning. People were stressed out. Some people were still sleepwalking. It was like 7 a.m. I'm bored of my flight from Miami to LAX. And she was just smiling. And she's like, good morning, everybody. You could come this way. And I looked at her and I said, thank you for being so happy. You really made my morning. Thank you for being so happy. So like, I just believe that like we could change somebody's day, like with a smile, a conversation, a question. Like you don't know what somebody's going through. Even if somebody snaps at you, like you don't know what they've been through. Like maybe they got in a bad fight with their spouse, or maybe their kid told them like, I hate you, mom. I hate you, dad. Maybe they lost their dog. Like one of my friends on WhatsApp is like in the hospital with her dog going through a hard time. Like we don't know what's going on. Like give people the benefit of the doubt. I know you asked me like what was the question? Like, what do I want God say to me? When I'm in front of the pearly gates, but I just hope he says, come on in, Brad, you've lived a good life. You've lived according to my principles. You've lived according to my will. You followed my commandments, and you get to come inside.
Let's go. Yeah. Brad Sumrok, guys, soon to be Sumrok Capital. Hopefully he's killing it in the real estate investment game. And if people want to connect with you, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, they go to bradsumrok.com, and there's no C in my last name. So it's BRADSUMROK.com. You can find all the information. I got free content to events that I do, periodically throughout the year. And also all my social media is the same. It's BRADSUMROK. There are some copycat accounts out there that have like underscores and, different, like one different letter and that stuff. None of that stuff's me. Yeah. So if you get messages from me selling crypto or like precious metals or some weird, like investment stuff, that ain't me. That's a copycat account.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that out there. All right. Brad Sumrok on all social media platforms and bradsumrok.com. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome, man. I had a great time.
Awesome. Yep.